Beneath the serene lotus blossoms and golden light of Skyward Sword's Ancient Cistern lies something truly terrifying, a descent into literal hell that draws from one of Buddhism's darkest legends. This isn't just another Zelda dungeon. This is Nintendo's most sophisticated exploration of life, death, and damnation ever created, and the symbolism hidden in every corner will completely change how you see this masterpiece. Welcome to the Ancient Cistern, where beauty masks horror and enlightenment borders insanity. Let's dive deep into the hidden lore that makes this dungeon an unforgettable nightmare. When Link first enters the Ancient Cistern in Skyward Sword, players are greeted with breathtaking elegance. Golden sunlight streams through ornate windows, illuminating pristine waters that reflect intricate architecture inspired by Asian temples. Lotus flowers float peacefully on the surface. The color palette radiates warmth. Golds, whites, and soft blues create an atmosphere of tranquility and sacred beauty. This is the Pure Land, and it's absolutely stunning. But something feels wrong, doesn't it? The Ancient Cistern presents itself as a place of worship and purification, but the deeper players venture, the more they realize this dungeon is hiding something sinister beneath its perfect surface. The sense of unease begins subtly. Shadows linger a bit too long in corners, the water's reflections seem to ripple without cause, and the silence between musical notes feels heavy with anticipation. Nintendo deliberately crafted this dissonance between visual beauty and emotional discomfort, and it's masterful. The dungeon's design philosophy centers on Buddhist symbolism, specifically the concept of the spider's thread parable from Japanese literature. This story, written by Ryunosuke Akutagawa in 1920, tells of a criminal named Kandata who finds a spider's thread descending from paradise into hell. He climbs desperately, hoping to escape damnation, but his selfishness causes the thread to break, plunging him back into torment. The Ancient Cistern brings this parable to life in interactive form. The upper floors represent the Pure Land, paradise in Buddhist cosmology. Everything here embodies purity, enlightenment, and spiritual elevation. The architecture features clean lines, natural light, and water symbolizing cleansing and renewal. Players navigate these spaces feeling relatively safe, solving puzzles that involve raising and lowering water levels, manipulating lily pads, and confronting enemies that, while challenging, don't inspire genuine dread. But then comes the descent. When Link pulls the lever and drops into the lower depths of the Ancient Cistern, the transformation is shocking. The golden paradise instantly gives way to a cramped, dark hellscape, dripping with decay and malevolence. The color palette shifts dramatically to sickly greens, dark purples, and muddy browns. Poisonous water replaces the pure pools above. The architecture becomes claustrophobic and oppressive. Skeletal remains and twisted metal create an environment of suffering and abandonment. This is hell, literally. The game doesn't hide this symbolism, it embraces it completely. The lower section represents Naraka, the Buddhist underworld where souls suffer for their karmic transgressions. Nintendo's environmental artists filled these depths with visual storytelling that communicates spiritual torment without a single word of dialogue. Chains hang from ceilings, suggesting bondage and imprisonment. The walls close in, creating feelings of suffocation. The poisonous bog replaces life-giving water, symbolizing corruption replacing purity. And then there are the cursed Bokoblins. The cursed Bokoblins inhabiting the Ancient Cistern's lower depths represent one of Skyward Sword's most disturbing enemy concepts. Unlike the standard Bokoblins encountered throughout the game, these creatures are transformed, cursed by the dungeon's dark energy or by the demon lord Girahim's influence. They've become something worse than monsters. They're suffering souls trapped in torment.
These Bokoblins exhibit different behavior patterns than their surface world counterparts. They move with desperate aggression, attacking with frenzied intensity that suggests pain rather than mere hostility. Their placement in the poisonous waters reinforces their cursed state. They exist in perpetual suffering, unable to escape the toxic environment that slowly destroys them. Players defeating these enemies aren't just fighting monsters, they're potentially offering release from damnation. The Buddhist interpretation becomes even clearer when examining the dungeon's central mechanic, the rope that connects paradise to hell. Throughout the lower section, Link must climb this rope to escape the depths and return to the Pure Land above. This rope directly references the spider's thread from Akutagawa's parable. Just as Kandata attempted to climb the thread to salvation, Link must ascend this rope while being pursued by the cursed Bokoblins below. But here's where Nintendo adds a terrifying twist. As Link climbs, cursed Bokoblins grab onto the rope beneath him, following him upward in desperate pursuit. They're not just chasing Link, they're trying to escape hell itself. These damned souls see Link's ascent as their own potential salvation, clinging to any hope of reaching the Pure Land above. Players must shake them off by moving the Wii Remote, literally denying these cursed beings their chance at redemption. The moral weight of this mechanic is staggering. Link cannot save them. He can only kick them back into the abyss, condemning them to continued suffering. This transforms a simple climbing sequence into a profound meditation on salvation, selfishness, and the impossibility of saving everyone. Just like Kandata's thread breaks under the weight of too many damned souls, Link's rope can only support him alone. The psychological impact intensifies through masterful sound design. In the upper floors, the music features traditional Japanese instruments. Shakuhachi flutes and koto strings create an atmosphere of meditative calm. The melodies are spacious, allowing silence to enhance the feeling of sacred emptiness. Water gently laps against stone, footsteps echo softly through vast chambers. Then players drop into hell, and the soundscape transforms completely. The music becomes ominous and oppressive, with deep percussion and dissonant strings creating tension that never resolves. The silence between notes disappears, replaced by constant auditory assault. Splashing through poisonous water creates sickening wet sounds. The cursed Bokoblins emit disturbing vocalizations, not the typical grunts of Zelda enemies, but sounds suggesting genuine anguish and desperation. When they grab the rope during Link's climb, their cries intensify, creating panic that perfectly mirrors the player's own fear of falling. Girahim's influence permeates the entire dungeon, though the Demon Lord himself doesn't appear until later in the game. The Ancient Cistern serves as a temple corrupted by his dark presence, transforming a place of worship into a trap designed to stop Link's quest for the sacred flames. Girahim's aesthetic, elegant yet sinister, beautiful yet grotesque, matches the dungeon's duality perfectly. The enemies throughout the Ancient Cistern reflect this twisted elegance. In the upper floors, players encounter cursed Bokoblins and cursed spumes, enemies that embody the dungeon's corrupted nature. These aren't random monster placements. Each enemy type reinforces the themes of curse, corruption, and the thin line between beauty and horror. The aquatic enemies, particularly the cursed spumes, force players to engage with the water itself as both tool and threat, blurring the distinction between safety and danger. And then comes Koloktos, an ancient automaton. This boss battle represents the culmination of every theme the Ancient Cistern has established. Koloktos is a massive mechanical guardian, a six-armed golden statue that initially appears as a sacred protector. The boss chamber returns to the aesthetic of the Pure Land, golden light, ornate decoration, and a sense of reverence. Players might feel relief at escaping the hellish depths below, but that relief shatters instantly when Koloktos activates. The boss battle mechanics force players to literally dismantle this sacred guardian piece by piece. Using the whip, Link must tear off Koloktos' arms and use them as weapons against the automaton itself. This reversal, using the Guardian's own limbs to destroy it, creates brilliant mechanical storytelling. Players aren't just fighting a boss, they're potentially desecrating a holy artifact, tearing apart something sacred to achieve their goals. The symbolism deepens when Koloktos reveals its true form. After sufficient damage, the golden exterior cracks away, exposing dark metal and glowing red cores beneath. The beautiful facade literally breaks apart, revealing the corruption hidden inside. This transformation mirrors the dungeon's own structure: paradise concealing hell, beauty masking horror, enlightenment bordering darkness. Koloktos' multiple arms reference various Buddhist and Hindu deities, particularly those associated with protection and destruction. Many armed figures in Asian religious iconography represent divine power, the ability to perform multiple actions simultaneously, and the complexity of cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. By corrupting this imagery and turning the Guardian into a deadly boss, Nintendo creates religious tension that elevates the battle beyond typical video game combat. The environmental storytelling throughout the Ancient Cistern deserves special attention because Nintendo packed incredible detail into every corner. In the upper floors, players who carefully observe will notice ceremonial objects, decorative motifs, and architectural elements suggesting this was once a fully functioning temple. Prayer wheels, offering bowls, and meditation spaces indicate genuine religious practice occurred here before corruption set in. The lower floors tell a darker story through their decay. Broken chains suggest something was imprisoned here and possibly escaped. Skeletal remains hint at previous victims or failed champions. The poisonous bog itself might be the accumulated corruption of centuries, a physical manifestation of evil that has seeped into the temple's foundation. Every environmental detail reinforces the narrative that this sacred space has been violated and transformed into something profane. Player vulnerability reaches its peak in the lower sections through mechanical design that strips away typical Zelda safety nets. The cramped corridors limit mobility, making combat more dangerous. The poisonous water constantly drains health, creating perpetual urgency. The cursed Bokoblins attack in greater numbers and with more aggression than enemies in other dungeons. Most significantly, the rope climbing sequences remove Link's ability to fight back entirely. Players can only flee upward while their pursuers grab at their ankles. This enforced helplessness creates psychological horror that transcends typical Zelda dungeon design. Players aren't conquering the Ancient Cistern through strength and skill alone. They're surviving it through desperation and fear. The climbing sequences especially generate genuine panic, the cursed Bokoblin's cries growing louder, the rope shaking violently, the fear of falling back into the abyss, creating an emotional intensity rarely seen in Nintendo games. The Ancient Cistern's impact on the Zelda series cannot be overstated. Before Skyward Sword, Zelda dungeons certainly featured dark themes. The Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time explored torture and death. The Arbiter's Grounds in Twilight Princess centered on execution and imprisonment, and various games included creepy atmospheres and unsettling enemies. But the Ancient Cistern achieved something different. This dungeon presented philosophical and religious horror rather than just visual grotesquerie. It engaged with genuine theological concepts about damnation, redemption, and the nature of good and evil. It created emotional and psychological unease through symbolism and environmental storytelling rather than jump scares or gore. It demonstrated that Nintendo could craft mature, sophisticated horror within an E10+ rated game. The influence appears in subsequent Zelda titles, though perhaps not as directly as fans might hope. Breath of the Wild's shrines occasionally invoke similar feelings of sacred spaces corrupted, particularly the Test of Strength shrines, where Link must fight mechanical guardians within temple-like environments. Tears of the Kingdom's depths, accessed through chasms throughout Hyrule, echo the Ancient Cistern's heaven and hell duality, with players descending from the surface world into dark underground regions filled with danger and corruption. The fan community has embraced the Ancient Cistern as one of Zelda's greatest dungeons, precisely because of its sophistication. Online discussions frequently analyze the Buddhist symbolism, debate the meanings of specific environmental details, and share personal experiences of genuine fear during the rope climbing sequences. Fan art often depicts the contrast between the Pure Land and Hell sections, capturing the visual and emotional duality that makes the dungeons so memorable. The Ancient Cistern also sparked broader conversations about religion in Nintendo games. While the company typically avoids explicit religious content in their franchises, Skyward Sword's Buddhist influences are undeniable and deeply integrated into the game's world-building. This demonstrated Nintendo's willingness to engage with serious cultural and philosophical themes. When doing so serves the narrative and enhances the player experience.
From a game design perspective, the Ancient Cistern showcases how environmental storytelling can communicate complex ideas without exposition dumps or text-heavy dialogue. Players understand the heaven and hell metaphor immediately upon descending to the lower floors, not because the game explains it, but because the visual and auditory design communicate it so effectively. This represents game design at its finest, using the medium's unique strengths to tell stories that couldn't exist in any other form. The dungeon's legacy extends beyond Zelda into broader gaming culture. Game designers and critics frequently reference the Ancient Cistern when discussing how to create meaningful horror in family-friendly games, how to integrate cultural symbolism into game worlds, and how environmental design can tell sophisticated stories. It's become a touchstone example of artistic ambition in mainstream gaming. What makes the Ancient Cistern truly special is how it respects players' intelligence and emotional capacity. Nintendo didn't shy away from dark themes or assume players couldn't handle sophisticated horror. They trusted that players would understand the symbolism, engage with the philosophical questions, and appreciate the dungeon's artistic depth. This respect for the audience elevates the entire experience. The mechanical design supports the thematic content perfectly. The water-raising puzzles in the upper floors feel meditative and calm, encouraging careful thought and planning. The frantic combat and escape sequences in the lower floors create stress and urgency that mirror the emotional tone of damnation and suffering. The boss battle combines both elements, strategic thinking required to defeat Koloktos, but also intense action that tests combat skills under pressure. The Ancient Cistern also benefits from its placement within Skyward Sword's narrative structure. By the time players reach this dungeon, they've established emotional investment in Link's quest and understand the stakes of his journey. The dungeon's horror hits harder because players care about Link succeeding and fear the consequences of failure. The cursed Bokoblins feel more tragic because players understand these were once living beings corrupted by forces beyond their control. The visual contrast between sections remains striking even years after the game's release. Modern players experiencing Skyward Sword through the HD remaster on Nintendo Switch can appreciate the enhanced graphics that make the Pure Land even more beautiful and the hellish depths even more grotesque. The improved resolution and frame rate strengthen the emotional impact of the transition between these spaces. It's worth noting how the Ancient Cistern subverts player expectations cultivated by previous Zelda games. Typically, temples in the series feature consistent aesthetics throughout. Forest temples remain forest-themed, fire temples stay volcanic, water temples maintain aquatic environments. The Ancient Cistern's radical shift between floors breaks this pattern, catching players off guard and intensifying the shock of discovery when they realize what lurks beneath. The rope climbing mechanic deserves additional analysis because it creates such unique gameplay. Most Zelda dungeons empower players, giving them new items, teaching them new techniques, making them feel progressively stronger as they master challenges. The rope climbing does the opposite. It strips away Link's abilities, rendering him temporarily helpless while enemies pursue from below. This reversal of typical power dynamics generates vulnerability and fear that standard combat encounters cannot match. The Buddhist symbolism extends even to smaller details that casual players might miss. The lotus flowers floating on the upper floor waters represent purity and enlightenment in Buddhist tradition. The lotus grows from mud but blooms pristinely above the surface, symbolizing spiritual transcendence over worldly corruption. The fact that these flowers exist only in the upper sections reinforces the Pure Land interpretation. The poisonous bog in the lower sections might represent accumulated karma or spiritual pollution, the physical manifestation of negative actions and corrupted intentions that have seeped into the temple's foundation over time.
In Buddhist thought, negative karma can accumulate and corrupt entire spaces, transforming holy sites into dangerous places. The Ancient Cistern dramatizes this concept through gameplay, making players navigate through literal spiritual pollution. The chains and restraints visible throughout the lower floors suggest imprisonment and bondage, key concepts in Buddhist discussions of suffering. The first noble truth in Buddhism states that life is suffering, and much of that suffering comes from attachment and bondage to worldly desires and negative patterns. The chains in the Ancient Cistern might represent these metaphorical bonds made literal.
Koloktos' 6 arms could reference specific Buddhist iconography. Many Buddhist guardian deities, particularly in Vajrayana Buddhism, are depicted with multiple arms to symbolize their ability to protect devotees from multiple threats simultaneously. Each hand might hold a different symbolic object, representing various aspects of protection and power. Koloktos corrupts this protective symbolism, turning the guardian into a deadly threat that Link must overcome. The boss's golden exterior hiding darker materials beneath mirrors Buddhist teachings about Maya, illusion or appearance that conceals true reality. Many Buddhist texts discuss how attractive surfaces can hide spiritual danger and how practitioners must see beyond appearances to recognize truth. Koloktos embodies this teaching, forcing players to literally break through the golden illusion to expose and defeat the darkness within. The Ancient Cistern's architecture itself tells stories through spatial design. The upper floors feature open spaces, high ceilings, and abundant natural light, all architectural elements associated with sacred spaces designed to inspire awe and contemplation. The lower floors compress space, reduce light, and create claustrophobia, the opposite of sacred architecture, designed to inspire discomfort and fear. The dungeon's water mechanics take on additional symbolic meaning within this framework. Water in Buddhist tradition represents purification, cleansing, and transformation. The pure water above cleanses and renews, while the poisonous bog below corrupts and destroys. Players must manipulate these waters to progress, essentially controlling the flow between purity and corruption, salvation and damnation. The Ancient Cistern stands as Nintendo's most sophisticated exploration of religious symbolism in gaming. While other games have incorporated religious imagery or themes, few have done so with such depth, respect, and integration into core gameplay mechanics. This dungeon proves that video games can engage seriously with philosophical and theological concepts while remaining entertaining and accessible. The lasting impact on players speaks to the dungeon's success. Years after completing Skyward Sword, fans still discuss the Ancient Cistern with reverence and slight fear. The rope climbing sequences remain memorable for generating genuine panic. The visual transition from paradise to hell stays etched in memory. The philosophical questions about salvation and damnation linger long after the console powers off. This is what makes the Ancient Cistern truly special. It transcends being merely a dungeon or level in a video game. It becomes an experience that challenges players emotionally, philosophically, and spiritually. It demonstrates video games' potential to explore profound themes through interactive storytelling. It reminds us that even in fantasy adventures about heroes and princesses, we can encounter genuine darkness and be forced to contemplate difficult questions about life, death, suffering, and redemption. The Ancient Cistern isn't just another Zelda dungeon. It's a masterpiece of environmental storytelling, religious symbolism, and psychological horror that redefines what Nintendo games can achieve. From the serene beauty of the Pure Land to the nightmarish terror of the hellish depths, from the cursed Bokoblins desperately clinging to Link's rope to the corrupted guardian Koloktos, every element works together to create an unforgettable journey through paradise and damnation. So the next time someone claims Zelda games are just cheerful adventures for kids, remind them about the Ancient Cistern.
Remind them about descending into literal hell while cursed souls grab at your ankles. Remind them about tearing apart a sacred guardian with its own limbs. Remind them that beneath Skyward Sword's colorful surface lies some of the darkest, most sophisticated horror Nintendo has ever created. The Ancient Cistern proves that beauty and horror, enlightenment and damnation, paradise and hell can coexist within the same sacred space. And it proves that Nintendo can craft experiences that challenge us, frighten us, and force us to contemplate the deepest questions about existence itself, all while we're just trying to help a hero save a princess. That's the hidden lore, the profound symbolism, and the lasting legacy of Skyward Sword's most chilling dungeon.